Tonight, just days after the Sydney siege ended, more questions are raised about Australia's gun laws. The Adelaide Parklands to become a dry zone under a new trial.
This is our best effort at constructing an arrangement that balances all the interests.
Around 300 jobs at SA Pathology under threat after an independent review. And Josh Hazelwood's dream debut for Australia. Good evening, Matthew Doran with ABC News. Just days after Manharan Monis took over Sydney's Lint Cafe, more questions are being raised about the nation's gun laws. The Australian Federal Police today admitted incorrectly telling the Prime Minister that Monis had a gun licence. And as Ben Worsley reports, a public in mourning now wants answers.
Where a single bunch of roses sat on Tuesday, a mountain of colour and compassion now lies.
It just doesn't make sense. Sorry, I don't get it.
Increasingly, the city's grief.
More than 300 jobs at SA Pathology are under a cloud as the state government considers a major restructure of the organisation. Recommendations include closing branches and replacing workers with robots in moves aimed at cutting $43 million a year from the health budget. Angelique Johnson reports.
SA Health commissioned Ernst & Young to review pathology services. The finding, SA Pathology is inefficient. Service costs are 126% of the Medicare benefits scheme, meaning taxpayers are having to subsidise the cost of providing public diagnostics.
A shooting near Unley that left 2 men with gunshot wounds to their legs is believed to be drug-related. Police are appealing for witnesses as the victims are refusing to cooperate.
The residents of this Ainsbury Avenue house at Kingswood only moved in a few weeks ago, but have quickly made themselves...
Alcohol consumption will be banned across the Adelaide Parklands 15 hours a day in a 3-month trial to tackle drunken violence and disturbances. The Adelaide City Council says the dry zone will protect residents, but welfare groups say it won't help vulnerable people with substance issues.
Under the trial, which starts Monday, alcohol consumption will be banned in the city parklands from 8 p.m. until 11 a.m. each day. The council says drunken violence is affecting residents and workers.
Disturbing footage of a boy being restrained by a prison guard in Alice Springs has raised questions about the treatment of children in youth detention. CCTV footage obtained by the ABC shows a 13-year-old being wrestled to the ground after refusing to change clothes. Anthony Stewart has this exclusive report and a warning: some viewers may find these images confronting.
A 13-year-old boy in an Alice Springs youth detention centre on a minor offence, threatening self-harm and refusing to put on a safety gown, spitting at staff.
There are growing calls in Pakistan for the government and the military to act decisively in response to the murder of 132 school children by Taliban extremists. The Prime Minister has lifted a moratorium on the death penalty, while the Army Chief has flown to Afghanistan to seek help in battling the militant group behind the massacre. ABC correspondent Mary Gearan reports.
These school grounds should be bursting with life, learning and hope. Instead, Pakistan's military stages a guided tour of a slaughter.
America's isolation of Cuba is coming to an end, with the White House announcing plans to normalise its relationship with the communist country. The sweeping changes to US policy, which include reopening its embassy, were made possible by the release of an American worker who'd been jailed in Cuba for the past 5 years. But not everyone is happy, and some Castro opponents believe the move will only entrench the regime. North America correspondent Lisa Miller.
In Cuba, they celebrated. This historic shift in policy took 18 months of secret talks, officials meeting in Canada and at the Vatican.
Russian consumers are frantically buying up big-ticket items like cars and electronics, amid fears Russia's ailing economy will send prices skyrocketing. The Kremlin has announced a series of measures to ease the pressure on the ruble. But as Europe correspondent Philip Williams reports, authorities fear a run on the banks is now inevitable.
The shops of Moscow tell the story. Consumer items like electrical goods were hot items. Shoppers anxious to make their purchases before the falling ruble meant even higher prices.
This month marks 2 years since sectarian violence erupted in the Central African Republic, one of the poorest countries in the world. Christian and Muslim militias are using thousands of children in the fighting, usually as combatants or sex slaves. Africa correspondent Martin Cudahy produced this report with the help of Save the Children.
War-torn Central African Republic. There is a ceasefire in place here, but human rights violations and war crimes continue.
Qantas is about to introduce twice-daily flights between Adelaide and Whyalla. The airline's regional service QantasLink will launch its service with a 50-seat aircraft in April. It will add to flights already offered by Regional Express. Whyalla City Council recently spent $3 million upgrading the city airport and says it hopes the new flights will increase local business and tourism. The measures to support the Russian ruble had a positive effect today on share markets around the world, including Australia's. But as Alan Kohler reports, there's a feeling it might not last.
When markets have fallen enough, they look for an excuse to rise, and almost any...
Australia has fought back on day 2 of the second cricket test at the Gabba. India crumbled to be all out for 408 in the first session. After being crippled by cramps on day 1, Josh Hazlewood bounced back to take 5 wickets on debut. In reply, Australia lost 4 wickets before bad light stopped play.
What a difference a day makes.
Oh, good edge. Hazlewood's got him.
Defender Cassio's future with Adelaide United is again under scrutiny after he apparently decided not to accept an FFA Cup Winners' Medal on Tuesday night. Cassio was at the ground but didn't take part in the presentation with the rest of the Reds squad. Coach Josip Gombau was less than impressed with Cassio's behaviour.
He don't come before the game to support the players, to say good luck. He don't come after the game to celebrate with the players. For me, this is disrespectful.
Cassio has struggled to recover from a leg injury, and while he has been in training, he hasn't been able to play an A-League game for 12 months. The Reds resume their A-League campaign away to Newcastle United tomorrow night. To the weather details now, and tonight's photo of Goolwa Beach at sunset was taken by Scott Ditter of Mount Osmond. Now recapping tonight's main stories. Federal Police have taken responsibility for an inaccurate information about whether the Sydney siege gunman had a firearms licence. Police say further inquiries have revealed Manharan Monis was not a registered firearms licence holder. And Adelaide's entire parklands will be a dry zone between 8 p.m. and 11 a.m. each day under new state government laws. It's to reduce alcohol-related violence and will run for 3 months on a trial basis from Monday. And that's the news for now. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back with a local update at 8:30. Good night.